Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Williams. I am excited to be facilitating today's discussion. In my role as the sales engineer, I demonstrate the capability of all Sage Fixed Assets module to potential and existing customers. I encourage everyone to visit the Community Hub and register your email. You can select which updates you'd like to receive in the Community Hub. You can always stay up to date on release information and communicate with the product experts. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Angie, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Angela Bolton, and I'm the Senior Product Manager here at Sage Fixed Assets, and I'm happy to be here today to share what's new.
I'm Ann Donie, the Product Owner and R&D Manager. Looking forward to this session. Thank you.
I'm Carl Thompson, Senior Business Analyst. I do tax research, feature design, and many other things.
In today's agenda, we're going to look at the tax updates, depreciation and tracking, enhancements, construction in progress, and learning opportunities. So the first one we're going to talk about are the tax updates. And Carl, what happened to the tax laws over the summer? I went on vacation over the 4th of July weekend, and when I came back, everything had changed. What changed?
Ed, yeah, thanks. I was on vacation too. I first thought, hey, there are so many changes to implement. Can we do it all, especially still close to the August release date? And then Ann, Angie, and some others pulled the team together to come up with a plan to incorporate the new tax provisions into the release. Also, we would like to thank all the customers who contacted the Sage Fixed Assets team to let us know that these changes were important to them. Your input let us know that we were on the right track. We have a chart up here. I'm sure you recognize there's a Section 179 chart and a 168 allowance chart prior to 2025.1. So the question is, were those the good old days? Seems complicated when you think back onto the bonus schedule for the last several years. On January 1st, 2025, Section 179 limit was $1,250,000, and then 168 bonus percent was 40%. And there were big changes to Section 179 with this summer's tax law changes. The new 179 maximum limit went to $2,500,000. It's a doubling. The threshold increased by $4 million, which is about $1 million increase. This is what's interesting. It was retroactive to January 1, 2025. So if you have already put assets in service in 2025 and taken some 179, you can probably add a little bit more if you wish. But interestingly, the SUV limits remained at $31,300. The changes to bonus are more complicated in 2025, but then they are very simple going forward. And from 1/1/25 to January 19/25, the bonus remained at 40% as the original 2025 bonus was set. However, on or after January 20 for assets placed in service on January 20th, 25, the bonus went to 100% and became permanent. Taxpayers have the option to elect 40% or 60% for LPP in 2025. It has to be done by asset class though. And just to the right over here, I have a little diagram of what the 168 allowance drop and asset drop list and asset detail looks like for 1/20/25 and later. You see the 100% bonus added, 40 and 60% remain in case you want to elect those, and then 50% remains for reuse and recycling with no end date at this time. Ed, do you have any other questions or comments?
I do, Carl. Are there any other changes, or do you have any tips or advice to make things easier for our customers?
Yes, I have more information on some other tax changes and a few tips for our customers. Section 168.9 was reintroduced to the tax code, and for qualified production property, QPP, as all the cool tax accountants call it, it's for real property, newly built manufacturing plants, refineries, or any facility that substantially improves a product, you can get 100% bonus for a building, and as long as you put it in service by 12/31/2029. And there are no new property types in Sage Fixed Assets. You could use real property type R, maybe E if you have energy property, etc. There's also the Section 174A change. You can now write off research expenditures. They used to have to be capitalized. This law is a little complicated, but there are many options on how to take advantage of the changes in the law. So be sure to talk to your tax accountant because there's several options. But one such option for small businesses, they can amend prior year returns to expense capitalized research expenditures in order to claim tax refunds. And I have a couple tips that will help, especially with this year of change. We've added 3 new audit advisors. Go to the top menu, then go to depreciation and go down the list. So one audit review checks for assets to see if you placed any assets in service with the +168 depreciation method, such as MA200, and have taken a bonus percentage of less than 100%. For any such assets, a group is formed for you to review your choices and make any necessary edits. The review applies only to assets placed in service after January 20th, 25. And there are 2 other audit reviews that have been added to check for assets not using a +168 depreciation method, such as MA200. If you want to take the 168 allowance on these assets, review the group created by the audit advisor and edit as necessary. And again, you can apply bonus on a class-by-class basis, but it cannot be applied on an asset-by-asset basis. And all of the other existing audit advisors are still available. The other point I want to bring up are the safe harbor rules for autos. So if you're familiar, if you had an auto, these rules were in effect basically between 2018 and 2022, back when bonus was 100%. So really the 2 main points is the safe harbor rule is only applicable in years when using 100% bonus. If you take just $1 of Section 179 in year 1, no depreciation will be allowed again until year 7. So my tip here, don't use Section 179 when depreciating automobiles or light trucks. And what I want to show you next is how to use a 168 allowance switch. And this is really important this year, obviously, because of the change in the depreciation method. You would use this for assets already placed in service on or after January 20th of 2025. So to find the Section 168 allowance switch, you go to the top menu, depreciation, and 168 allowance switch. It's in the same menu as audit advisor. To complete the 168 switch dialog, to switch to 100%, you would select your asset group, the book tax, plus any other books, the year placed in service, which would be 2025, and you'd be selecting 100%. You'll see a couple messages pop up. The first 2 might be to confirm, letting you know what's exactly being changed and confirm you want to proceed. And then at the end, you will be notified when the switch is complete, so you know that it was successful. If you take this 40%, 60% election, the switch can also be taken on assets already entered at 100%. So in other words, it doesn't matter as long as you're just switching percents. And for assets not yet entered in 2025, the switch isn't needed because the product automatically defaults to 100% in a 168 bonus field. So that's all I have. Ed, do you have anything else?
Thanks, Carl. Are there other methods to set the 168 allowance percentage, such as the bulk edit? I love the bulk edit.
Oh, Ed, that's a good question. I'm sure a lot of our listeners right now are thinking, yeah, why wouldn't you just use bulk edit? Bulk edit does not change the bonus percent when a +168 depreciation method, such as MA200, is already being used. It retains that same bonus percent. This is why we recommend using 168 allowance switch feature when updating your bonus percentage.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. And now we are going to look at the new features and enhancements. And many new users are unsure which reports to use for reconciling asset additions with the general ledger each month. Can you explain what's different in this release and how the process is now simpler?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do so. Previously, before this release, the answer was to create a group of assets whose place in service date or acquisition date, whichever you preferred, was in the desired month or accounting period, and then use that group with one of your preferred reports, such as the depreciation expense report. Then each month, of course, you would need to update that group to look at the newer month or create another group. And yes, that takes a while to even say that, takes even longer to do it. So in this release, we have an asset additions report, so that process is no longer needed. On this report, there is a date range from to that you can select, and that is very much like the same date range that you see on the transfer report and the disposal report if you're used to those reports. And then over on the right under the configuration area, the little green box, that's where you can check to run the report either for acquisition date or placed in service date for the dates that you just entered. I would like to show you how to make the most out of this new report. Here we have the depreciation application. I've got the single user version running, and I'm down in the reports area in this lower left area, and we can see the different reports tabs across the top here. I've got currently the category of standard reports showing. This just filters your reports to make them easier to see. With this version, you'll now see this asset additions report, and a preview of it will show here. For those of you that have been using the product for a while, you may say, wow, that layout looks a little bit familiar. This asset additions report was actually made from the file listing report, and you can still run it as a file listing report or as an asset additions report. While we're here, let me show you, if this is going to be a frequently used report, or for any of your frequently used report, you can right click on the report and say add to favorites. And now if I go to favorites, you can see asset additions is here along with a few other reports. And of course, this report can be added to your batch reports if you want to run it on a regular basis. So here we are in the dialog, and I also want to point out that before I updated, I had a few custom reports that were based on the file listing report. And if you had the same thing, you will now see those reports underneath the asset additions report in this drop list. The exact same reports, no names will have been changed, no layout has changed. They've just moved position because we no longer have a file listing report listed here. You can select your date here, or all dates as mentioned. And right now this is set up to run an asset additions report. And one of the key things to do that is this box should be checked, include original assets only. We currently got it set to run an acquisition date, but I could change it to place in service date. And there's a help icon here, which launches our product help in your browser. This is a first also for 2026, is that now help launches in your browser as long as you have a internet connection. If not, you'll see it launched in product as before. Some nice advantages to it being launched in the browser. You can have it open while working in the application, switch back and forth. You can send links and share links with other people if need be very easily. To run it as an asset additions report, you would have it set up like I do now with a date range, include only original assets and picking your preferred period. Or to run it as the file listing report, you can include inactive assets, uncheck the include only original assets. So what this checkbox does, it means that, let's say you had transfers or disposals of assets, especially like a partial transfer, that creates another extension of an asset that you might be familiar with. These extensions here are created if you do a partial disposal, partial transfer. So when you uncheck this, you're going to see all those different transactions that happen for that asset. You'll see multiple rows. That's great for a file listing, but for the asset additions, you just want to see the original asset when it was placed in service to tie back to your general ledger. That covers everything about the overview on asset additions.
Thanks, Ann. I have a customer that is working with the state of Mississippi. There's a book that they have created, and they need to calculate depreciation for the state of Mississippi for 100% bonus for 2024, which the state of Mississippi now allows. Can they do that with a custom depreciation method or the 168 extra feature?
Yes, you'd use the 168 extra feature. This is a new feature in this product because of customer requests for Mississippi specifically. So let me show you in the product how that's used. I'd like to share my screen again. So Ed, for any company that you have, you can come up to the edit company area, and there's a new feature here called section 168 extra. This allows you to effectively override the federal tax rule base. So up to now, the product has always enforced the federal tax laws, especially when it comes to bonus in section 179. It wouldn't let you take something that wasn't allowed for a particular time period, place in service time period, because the federal rules were enforced. Now you can override those rules and use all the functionality of the product for whatever percents you choose here. I'm going to go ahead and just show an example, choose 180% and click save here. So it's turned on if this checkbox is checked. That means any asset I go to, I'll see those additional options in the drop list. So let me go to a 2024 asset, talking about Mississippi here and them being 100% in 2024. We have the Mississippi book here. Yes, the I is missing because the field is 10 characters long and Mississippi is 11. We come down to the 168 field, and you can see I have it set at 100% actually because I was setting this up earlier. But if you hadn't had that feature on, it would have only allowed 60% because that's the default, and 50%, and then 80% for LLP property. You wouldn't have seen 100. So now you can set any of these books to 100. And when you do that, you can see the 168 allowance percent is in bold over here with a plus sign after it. So if you go to an asset and asset detail view and you see this in bold, that means one of the books is using a percent that doesn't follow the federal rules for this time period, 2024. For example, if I switch this back to 60%, you can see the bold goes away. Now I'm going to leave this at 100% because that's what we need for Mississippi. We do have messages that just say it's not applicable for US tax purposes, but it is for other purposes. And all the other features, like the one Carl showed you at the 168 allowance switch, work with the 168 extra feature. So you could mass change all your Mississippi assets that you need to change using the 168 allowance switch feature. If the tax departments may be coming in here and changing the one book, and they're like, okay, we're done. We don't want to allow those extra percents to maybe accidentally be selected. You can just unselect that. And now when I come back here, this asset, of course, I've selected on. It's going to be retained. But if I go to a different asset, here's another one placed in service in 2024 that I hadn't changed to 100%, and now 100% is not there for that asset or any other assets because it's switched off at the company level. So I hope that feature allows people to quickly adjust the assets for their Mississippi or any other state rules they might need.
That helps a lot, Ann. Thank you. I have another question.
Okay.
In version 2025.1, Ally was beta. It's no longer there in 2026.0. What changed?
So yes, the beta is now gone, and we have a new icon over here, the Sage AI icon, and that is because now Ally is powered by Sage's semantic search, which is our own generative AI. As before, Ally is trained. I'm going to just click on the Ask button to open the dialog right away here. It's trained on all our help topics. In fact, those help topics that we were showing in the web browser before, it goes through those as often as we like every day, and we'll learn from any updates we make to help on a daily basis. A lot of this dialog will look familiar if you've used Ally before, but there's a few new things here and things I'm really excited about because I think customers will find it much more useful because now we provide links back to the sources. I'm going to click one of these example questions, but I could type in whatever I liked here. This show sources is on, which is good before I ask the question. So this looks like a good answer. You see your question at the top here, and then the steps here, and it gives you a few important notes. And then it gives you sources, how to transfer an asset. This is actually a knowledge base article from our help team. So you can click on the link and see what our support team wrote up about that. We actually have a Gov nonprofit, which is a type of entity. So if you are using a government or nonprofit types entity, you click on that one. If you're using the regular single user US one, click on that, and here you're right in help and you're able to see all the related topics. So you can check the source very quickly. Another great feature is answering if this is helpful or not to you. That's going to help us to train Ally better. So if you tell us no, you can optionally add why it wasn't helpful and add comments and click submit. Or if you say yes, which is great to hear too, because then we know we're on track with some of these things, then it just quickly lets us know that it was good to go and it's submitted. So you can't resubmit on this because I just answered this, but if I was to ask another question and the next question wasn't helpful or was, I can respond on that one also.
That's beautiful, Ann, and I love beauty. Now, as I'm doing my demos, I always stress to the customers that Ally is your best friend to save you time. It is a time saver. However, with this new version, I'm looking at this new tab that says expand search. Can you explain to us what is that expand search button now?
Absolutely. I clicked help because this will also tell you down here that you can enable this option to include results from all of our products and content sources. So if you expand search, it will expand Ally's library of knowledge for you to answer from to include the tracking module, the construction in progress, CIP module, Premier depreciation, whatever you're not in. So if you don't click this, then when you send that question, we also send information to Ally that says, hey, I'm using version 26.0 and I'm in the depreciation single user product. You click this, it expands it further. You're probably saying, okay, why would I want to do that? If you use the other modules, or even if you don't, but maybe you're asking a question about tracking construction in progress, assets that aren't yet assets, tracking those costs, you can click expand search, ask that question, and you'll get an answer also with links that can help you out.
Okay. And what other benefits can customers expect out of this release?
All right, we've got 5 other things I'll go through pretty quick. And by the way, like 80% of these are customer requests. They save customers time. And so always put in your request in the Sage Fixed Assets Ideas portal. If something's just, oh, I'm doing this all the time, can you make this easier for me? So the big stuff and the little stuff we welcome in the Ideas portal. The first one I want to point out here is for running a batch. We've had several customers say that they're always having to change this path each time they go to run a batch. Some of them have multiple companies in Sage Fixed Assets, and they want the reports to go to different folders, and they don't want to have to reset that every time they go to a different company. So now the program will remember your last used path for you specifically as a user. So if you're in a multi-user situation, you won't see someone else's saved path. You'll just see your last used path, and you'll see your last used path by company. So for this example here, I just set up some paths of different companies that I wanted reports to go to. So if I go to my other company called AD Enterprises, my last used path was AD Enterprises in that case, and that's going to default here. Just something to save a few seconds. Release notes have great information. I'm going to run through the last few items here on this. So if you're using Sage Intacct with Sage Fixed Assets, you'll see improvements where you create assets from Sage Intacct accounts payable, invoices, and bills. You can now, when you're looking at the information here that comes from Sage Intacct, before you create the asset, you can apply or change the template that was selected to whatever you like to be applied. And you'll also see all the bill states that the bill is currently in and Intacct. We went over the Save File Pass. Angie's going to be going over some of these items on construction in progress. We have a new release of our Sage Fixed Assets Scanner coming out, version 2.5, that has another customer requested feature, which is faster scanning when you're scanning those asset tags. You no longer need to go back to the asset list to click that scan button. Right there, after you scan an asset, it shows you that information for the asset, and you can just tap to scan the next asset. Or if you have the Unitech scanner, you just pull the trigger to scan the next asset tag. Finally, Crystal Reports Runtime 34. This is what powers most of our reports in the system. A lot of Sage products are now aligned on this Service Pack 34 because SAP Crystal Reports doesn't always play nicely if there's applications with different service packs installed on the same machine. Now Sage 100, 300, 500, HRMS, and Sage Fixed Assets, their latest versions are all on the same service pack for improved experience and compatibility.
Thanks, Ann. This is very informative. Okay, so now we're going to get to the construction in progress. Angela, can you tell us about the new features of the construction in progress?
Thanks, Ed. I would absolutely love to. My pleasure. So if you guys haven't heard of the CIP, it used to be called planning. And in January of 2025, although we released the new name through marketing efforts, it is now in the product. You know, what used to be called planning has finally got a new name that makes all the sense in the world, which is CIP. In case you didn't know, is construction in progress. Why the change? Because we always get questions about planning. Is this budget? No, it's not. It's CIP. And in fact, some of the things behind the scenes were called CIP. So it just made sense to just call it what it is, which is CIP, which is where you track and manage your projects while they're in development, like a remodel, a new machinery and equipment that's being put together, or anything like that, while they're in development before they hit to be placed in service. So now the name finally matches the job. You'll see CIP everywhere now in the interface, the help docs, the references across the different products. And this makes life so much easier, especially for new users. And so instead of explaining planning is really CIP, we could just say this is CIP, clear, clean, done, right? And CIP is a separate module, but it does interface seamlessly when assets get placed in service. By a click of a button, you just send them right on over to depreciation on your schedule. This is by far one of my most favorite modules and favorite processes to automate. CIP is beyond the name. It's gotten a little tune-up in 2026 as well. So the major launch of the new interface and everything that's awesome about it, especially its security preferences, were launched in 2025.1, and now in 2026 we did a little housekeeping. So think of it as fewer headaches and fewer clicks throughout the process. So first up are imports. You can now bring in transactions from your ERP by either project name or project code. We've noticed that everyone runs their processes a little differently with their CIP projects, and this makes it easy and streamlined for people to bring their transactions over. So fewer headaches, and whichever makes sense for you is now your choice. Admins are also going to love the next one, which you can copy project profiles across the database. So no more recreating the wheel. Once it's done, copy it over and you're done, which creates standardization across your organization. Also eliminates a lot of time to put everything back together, map everything. You literally just can use it as a template. And then we've also made it easier to name, find, and organize your projects. So instead of scrolling and hunting, you can now actually find your projects and keep moving forward. CIP now remembers your last path file when you're importing. What Ann showed about exporting your data out into the same file path, very similar now in CIP. So when you're importing, it creates the same file path, which means for you as a user, no more clicking through your directory tree over and over. It's a small thing, but it really adds up, as Ann demonstrated earlier with depreciation. And last, certainly not least, a bunch of other under the hood fixes. Think of like a house remodel. You'd really love to do your kitchen so everyone sees it, but you're stuck doing the plumbing and no one sees it, right? That's what's going on over here behind the scenes. So think of smoother imports, cleaner messaging, a few little odd glitches that we found, and basically it just feels more stable, which makes your job so much easier in managing your CIP projects. I absolutely love this module, and I hope that if you're unsure of how to use it, what it's all about, how it can streamline your fixed asset process holistically, give us a call. We'll walk you through it. I personally would love to have a conversation with you, so reach out.
Thank you, Angie. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting in with Angie while she worked with a customer on the CIP module, and I demoed the CIP module regularly, and I was in total awe of the way Angie walked the customer through the CIP module and showed them the capabilities of the things that they could do in this module. She taught me something, okay?
Thanks, Ed.
Now-
I absolutely love automating CIP.
Yes, I could tell.
I would have to say that one of the things that our team really did quite fabulously was the security aspect of CIP. The security aspect in the depreciation system is absolutely awesome, but with CIP security, it actually takes it even further. So if you're worried about security functions, you cannot get that with Excel, lock down Excel and permissions, just so you know. But you can access that and gain that in CIP. And then to mention the other one that was a pretty big stickler, which is about reconciling, if you flow all of your assets through CIP and automatically send them to depreciation, it tracks by a reference number that you can group, report, and reconcile. And guess what? The auditors absolutely love it. So if you're trying to find ways to save money and find a true ROI with CIP automation, that is where the gold is. Auditors will stop asking you ridiculous questions. Not to naysay auditors, but it's a big deal. So thank you.
All right. So now we're going to talk about learning opportunities. So this is the learning journey. We've redesigned the training page to make learning Sage fixed assets simple and easy to follow. Whether you're brand new to Sage fixed assets, an existing customer looking for a refresher, or you just hired someone new to your team, this journey guides you every step of the way. Complimentary training, that's step one. You start with the complimentary training. The Getting Started Hub introduces you to the basics of Sage fixed assets. From there, you can explore our What's New training to stay up to date with the latest release. Plus, access year-end procedures quickly. Step two, comprehensive learning with a membership. With the learning membership, you'll unlock in-depth training on key areas like depreciation, reporting, tracking, CIP, and maintenance. Each area offers flexible options, anytime learning, traditional ebooks, and new interactive ebooks, so you can learn at your own pace in the format that works best for you. 3, continue learning with expert insights. Finally, you can keep building your knowledge with expert insights. This includes recorded webinars and our resource center, where you'll find more tips, catalogs, and articles to keep your skills growing. So no matter where you are in your learning journey, whether you're just getting started, brushing up, or onboarding someone new, this path gives you a clear way forward and shows the value of ongoing training access. I would like to thank our expert panelists. We've covered a lot of ground today, from support to new features and practical tips for efficiency. I hope everyone got some valuable insights. All right, everyone, have a good remainder of your day.